Alright, last video, and it is on reflexes. For the sake of time, I've already drawn out my reflexes, and so I'll just go ahead and walk you through them all. So, the first one, I guess we'll talk about is this one. So this is your muscle spindle. This is just like your outside muscle, and if you were to open it, that's what the inside looks like. And this is for any muscle. And so you have a couple of motor neurons that are running to it, and they're running to these different fibers. So the inside is your intrafusal fibers, and then your extrafusal fibers. And you're going to have your gamma motor neurons running to your intrafusal and your alpha motor neurons running to your extrafusal. So say that you were to like stretch your bicep, right? Well, you want the muscles or the fibers inside your muscle, these intrafusal fibers, to stretch with it, right? Otherwise it will kind of cause, I don't know, that would cause maybe a cramp. But you want both of them to move in the same direction. So that's what's happening is, oh, I didn't finish drawing, whoops. So your alpha motor neurons are stretching your extrafusal fibers, the big muscle, and then your gamma motor neurons are going to be then working with your intrafusal fibers to make sure that they're both stretching the same amount and at the same time. Next is your stretch reflex. So think about when you go to the doctor, right? This is what I always think of, and me and my sisters do this in church with our phones. It's pretty fun. So you have, that's an ugly hammer. That's worse. Alright, so you've got a hammer. Okay, and the doctor comes and he's like, I'm gonna test your reflexes, and he goes whack right there. Okay, what that actually does is it pulls this down, which then stretches this. Okay, so you're stretching this muscle right here, and so it's gonna send a signal like, hey, I'm being super stretched and this is really uncomfortable, I don't like this, right? And also I could hurt myself if I stretch too much, because technically I think that the muscle like goes over like that. Anyways, it's like, hey, I'm being stretched way too much, this is uncomfortable, I don't like this. And so then we're gonna send a different signal, which is this pink one, and it's gonna say, okay, then do an EPSP, right? Excitatory, contract it. But at the same time, if I were to contract this, causing my leg to flip up, right, so that my leg is then straight, it's such an ugly bone, and this was still contracted, right, it wasn't relaxed, then that would be very problematic and I could hurt this muscle. So I have to send an IPSP to my hamstrings, which is my antagonist muscle, so that it will allow my agonist muscle to then actually stretch and we can swing out and protect ourselves. Going off of this, there's also the withdrawal reflex, which I just didn't draw. Withdrawal, I think that's what you say. I'm touching a hot stove and it's like, ow, that burns. I have to do the same thing where I send an EPSP and an IPSP. EPSP is going to, can you see my muscles? The EPSP is going to be going to my bicep to say, hey, get away from there. And then the IPSP is going to go to my triceps back here. That way I can actually pull it back without hurting either muscle. So that's my withdrawal reflex. Then you have your Golgi tendon one. This one is like if you're doing reverse bicep curls. There's probably a name, but I don't know. Like you're gently lowering them down. At some point, your brain is like, hey, if we go any further, we are probably going to rip this thing away. Like this tendon is going to get ripped off, and we do not want that. So it's going to send a signal to say, hey, contract, right? And so that's why, like, as you go, you can only go so far before you have to drop it, because if you go any further without contracting, then it might be enough strength for that to rip off. So those are all your reflexes, and that is the last video for this session.